Hello everybody, I'm Evan Kamikow, and this is the Toss Up. Each week, join myself and an expert line panel to dissect the latest sports news from some of the nation's most elite college programs here in Bloomington to the biggest stadiums and stages around the world. Stick around because we have a great show coming up on the Toss Up. As the weather starts getting colder and the lakes start freezing over, we are at the new start of a new season for the National Hockey League. Thus, today, we're talking about NHL on the show. We'll be breaking down the latest on the Chicago Blackhawks controversy, who won the Jack Eichel trade, and diving into the new NHL team, the Seattle Kraken. Plus, we'll make our picks for Stanley Cup champion and league MVP. Later on, however, Logan Toon will be in studio breaking down the Hoosier Hockey Club team. But now on the show to break down the NHL season is Austin Platt, Garrett Drake, and Kelsey Dennehy. Garrett, Austin, Kelsey, welcome to the Toss Up. And Kelsey, you sat here like 2 weeks ago, right?
I did. I'm glad to be back. Thanks for having me.
Well, we're back. We're talking hockey. Let's start off with one of the biggest storylines in all of NHL. A lot of things that happened with it. The Chicago Blackhawks and the Kyle Beach from the 2010 playoff season. Austin, I'll start with you. What are your thoughts on that?
Just a horrible situation for the NHL. It's 11 years later, and this is finally being recovered. Back in May, there were some rumors spreading, and finally we saw something. Shout out to Kyle Beach. Props to him for really getting this started. And this raises a bigger question, I think, throughout not only sports but just the world in general in terms of assault. But they did the right thing in the end. Finally got the right people. The fine probably could have been a bit more, but the name's off the Stanley Cup for the people who are at fault for this, and just a horrible situation all around. The Blackhawks season, I don't think, could get much worse.
Garrett?
This was definitely one of those moments where every sports organization, no matter what league, what team, they're all going to learn a lesson from this, and you have to know that player safety and well-being has to be put above everything else, including the Stanley Cup, which obviously the Blackhawks thought 10 years ago that wasn't the case, and now we know that you have to make sure that you really know everything that's going on. And when something's brought to light, like the Kyle Beach situation, you have to take care of it right then and there, because he had to live with that in silence for 11 years. And I couldn't even imagine how that was for him. It was obviously very hard. We saw the raw emotion that he showed on TV, and it was just an unfortunate situation, the way it played out and everything. But the NHL took the steps that they needed to make sure this doesn't happen again.
Kelsey?
I mean, exactly what they said. What people were responsible for at the end of the day didn't happen. They did not protect the players. At the end of the day, if you want your players to perform, if you want them to do great things on the ice, they need to be protected both on and off the ice. And that includes physical but also mental health. And something like sexual assault should not have been taken as lightly as it was. And it's really unfortunate that it took as long as it did for it to really kind of come out and be taken care of the way that it should have been taken care of in that first meeting in 2010.
And you look at kind of everything that's happened, and if you look at the grand scheme of things, not only this, but it's just a microcosm of the sports world itself, because you have this Blackhawks situation in hockey, which is one of the first, that we've really heard a big controversy in the NHL in a long time. And then you look at other sports, the NWSL, same thing happened here. We had a whole toss-up roundtable a couple weeks ago here talking about it. Now you go to the NBA, you look at Robert Sarver of the Phoenix Suns and all that's going on there. To me, this whole situation is how far will teams go to win, right? When you're in a winning season, you tend to say, okay, right now we're focused on the cup, which obviously should never, if something like this is happening, you should never, that shouldn't be where your mind's going. But it should be, okay, player safety above all. And in all of these leagues now, we're starting to see, what's been going on and what it takes for some clubs to want to win a championship.
Right. It's so tricky, too. And, I mean, the fact that they let it go for so long and that pattern that we're seeing throughout sports where their players aren't being protected, it's just really unfortunate. I mean, the statement came out that the whole reason they didn't kind of take care of it in 2010 was because they didn't want to mess up team chemistry. At the end of the day, team chemistry is already at an error. There's something going on there already. If one of your players is hiding in silence, in fear, in pain, there's already something wrong with the team chemistry.
Guys, anything to add?
I think Kelsey pretty much hit the nail on the coffin with that one, and I think everybody just needs to remember what you do in the dark is always going to come into the light. We've all heard that before, and this was another prime example of something that was swept under the rug, but it's always going to come back up.
Austin, final thoughts?
Absolutely. That's kind of, you guys said it all. I mean, it's glad that it finally gets picked up, but still way too long, and it kind of, it takes into the fact, like, what does winning really mean? I mean, people take it way too far, and there's so many more things that are above winning, and although we love sports and all that, there's so many things that need to be taken care of behind the scenes.
And you summed it up great before we kind of move on and talk about more lighthearted things. At the end of the day, sports is a game. People play sports, yes, obviously to make money. It's how families make their living and people get income. But it's just a game at the end of the day. The thing that matters so much more than anything else is player safety. Because if the players aren't happy, if they're not safe, game can't go on. Game, quite frankly, should not go on. So we'll kind of move away from the Blackhawks. Let's talk hockey. Let's get into it. Biggest hockey news of the last week, Jack Eichel got traded from the Buffalo Sabres to the Vegas Golden Knights. Kelsey, what are your reactions on that? Who do you think won the trade right now?
I think that's pretty exciting. We won't really know who won the trade, though. I think for a couple years, you really don't know who wins any trade for a while because give or take, people have to get adjusted. They kind of move things around. They make sure they're comfortable. And but at the end of the day, too, Jack Eichel does still need to get surgery. He has a pretty big surgery coming up, and one that you can't really predict a total end date for. While I'm glad that it was able to be concluded, something that is a big thing, like having your body and being able to make your own choice. And he's able to do that now. I think we'll definitely see, and I think if he comes back full strength, Vegas definitely took this trade.
So, Garrett, do you think he's coming back? When do you see him coming back, potentially?
I think we could see Eichel closer to playoff time, potentially, if the Golden Knights are in a situation to make a run at the Cup. I think they'll definitely take it slow. And going back to the trade as well, the Sabres were put in a very difficult situation when Eichel demanded a trade because, as soon as a player does that, their value goes down significantly, and it's going to be tougher for that team to trade him. And he's injured as well, so health is always a question that's brought in. And Vegas did a good job of, they didn't have to give up too much. I didn't really like how they gave up Alex Tuch. He was a young player who's produced quite a bit for them. He scored 20 goals a couple years ago as well. But at the end of the day, I think they did all that they could, them being Buffalo. And the return that they got was pretty good. They got a couple protected first-round picks as well, so I thought they did a good job.
And Austin, Jack Eichel's the kind of player who, you've seen him on the ice, you've seen just the potential. I feel like he's scratching his surface. What do you have to say about him getting added to that already, very good Vegas Golden Knights team?
This is a credit to the Vegas Golden Knights. They've done this for years, and they've only been in the league for a few years now, but they've always had the will to go out and get more players. Mark Stone is a name. Alex Pietrangelo, a massive D-man, has done so much. And you put Jack Eichel right in the middle of that offense, a team that just hasn't been able to score goals in the playoffs. That's been the reason why they've been at the top of the Western Conference the last few years. Just haven't been able to score enough goals. Jack Eichel, when healthy, if it is at the end of the season, if they're still competing right now, they're closer to the bottom, surprisingly. Without Fleury, I think that's taken a toll on them. But you put him in there, the Vegas Golden Knights, always, never satisfied. And I think they have a solid chance to do well once again in the Western Conference.
Yeah, and too bad Fleury ain't really doing well in Chicago right now. But, keeping on the West Coast, let's talk about the brand new team in the league, the Seattle Kraken. First of all, I love that name. I think there's nothing better than calling yourselves the Kraken. I mean, what's not to love about that? But they're 4-7-1, 4-8-1 right now. What do you see about them? What's something interesting? Can they turn it around, Garrett?
I think it's going to be interesting to see what they do here in the next month or so because being an expansion team, it's all new players who most of them haven't played together. But they did get some good pieces. They got Yanni Gourde from the Lightning. I really like that pickup. And it's just going to take a little bit of time for them to mesh. Their power play has really struggled this year. It's below 10%, and they're dead last in the league. So that's something that they have to address. They're giving up quite a bit of goals as well. So it's just little things that they have to fix and get used to knowing how everybody plays and things like that. So I think they'll turn it around. I don't know if they'll make the playoffs this year because the Western Conference has been playing pretty well so far, but, they've got a shot.
Austin?
Yeah, you expect this. Garrett hit the nail right on the head. There are going to be some growing pains. It's a brand new team, and granted, what Vegas did a few years ago, that's probably never going to happen again. The NHL made sure the expansion draft wasn't going to be OP for the expansion team ever again. But they're dealing with some COVID issues as well. But Brandon Tanev, Yanni Gourde, Mark Giordano, their captain who they got from the Flames. I love that pick. Adam Larson as well from the Oilers on D. And they have Philip Grubauer in net, who's going to be rock solid. Growing pains are expected, and the Pacific is a relatively weak division, I think, very top-heavy with the Oilers and what we expected to be the Vegas Golden Knights. But I expect them to turn around. Maybe not playoffs, but if they can be fifth and right on the outside looking in, I think it'll be a successful season.
So, Kelsey, outside looking in is what Austin says for the Kraken. Now, let's have a little fun here. If the Kraken were in the East, would you see them breaking through and maybe making the playoffs in the East?
Oh, that's tough. I'm not so sure. I think they would definitely, the competition, I don't know if I'd say it'd be tougher. I think it would be different. And obviously when you're in a certain category, you play within that style, and you learn to adapt that kind of way. I think it would be a little bit more challenging for them, but I think they could still do it. I mean, at the end of the day, they're still, like both guys said, they're a new team. They have the growing pains, they're meshing, but they do have some really, really good picks, and I think that they could be really, really good.
And they hold high picks in next year's draft as well.
Exactly.
So, a lot of pieces to build off. Let's make some way too early predictions. 12, 13 games for a lot of these teams in the season. Austin, who's going to be your Hart Trophy winner this year?
Heard of the guy, Connor McDavid? The guy scoring goals left and right. Scored a 1-on-4 the other night against my Rangers. I still can't believe I just witnessed that. He's unbelievable. He's had 100 points last year in a shortened season. He's going to do it again. I think he might have the most goals in the league, and I actually think the Oilers might go far in the playoffs. I won't get too far ahead, but Connor McDavid is going to be the Hart winner again.
Connor McDavid. Garrett.
Connor McDavid is a heck of a player, first of all, and I think he would be a lot of people's consensus pick for the award.
I feel a butt coming.
But
there it is.
I'm going to go to Washington. Alexander Ovechkin at age 36. What he has done so far this season is incredible. The man just scores. That's all he does. He just keeps putting pucks into the net. He leads the NHL in goals currently with 11. He's third in points behind Draisaitl and McDavid, which, they kind of feed off of each other. Yeah. So that definitely helps their stats too, but Ovechkin's been playing incredible this year. I think Washington's going to have a good chance to make a playoff run as well. So it's going to be interesting to see how the rest of the regular season plays out and how many goals he can score.
Kelsey.
I mean, I really couldn't agree more with both of them, but I'll throw a different name in the mix just for
please
fun.
Do. We don't like the same answers here.
Sebastian Aho. He's a rock star. He's definitely been on the come up for the past couple years, and I definitely credit the Carolina success that they've had at the beginning of the season somewhat to him. He is just a really dynamic player. He moves well. He has great stick skills. And, Connor McDavid and Alexander Ovechkin are hard to compete with, but I think he's definitely up there with them.
Patrick Kane. That's who I'm going to say is mine.
He's struggling, poor
guy.
But
it's fine. The Blackhawks are going to be fine. They fired Jeremy Colliton, cleaned house. It's going to be fine in Chicago, but they're going to turn around. They have some really nice pieces there. Kirby Dach, is working out. It's just growing pains, and the fact that Jeremy Colliton, I could get into a whole other thing with that, but story for another time because he is fired. Let's talk now. Way too early Stanley Cup predictions. Austin, I'll start with you on this one again.
Well, I kind of teased. I think the Edmonton Oilers finally get over the hump. We've talked about plenty of teams that have disappointed in the playoffs. Toronto Maple Leafs still can't get past the first round, which blows my mind. The Avalanche are another team as well that somehow with McKinnon and co. can't do it. I think the Oilers, they're also in that boat as well. I'm not going to, shove that under the rug, but I think this is their year. McDavid, Draisaitl, they have another year of experience. Goaltending tandem this year. Mike Smith, who's been out a little bit, they've had a great 1-2 punch, and I'll have them winning it all. And I actually, on the East, I'm going to go with a bit of surprise. As a Rangers fan, I know it's kills me to say. I think it's the New York Islanders. Honestly, they've been so close to being the Lightning the last 2 years, who, of course, are back-to-back champs now. They've made the right moves at the trade deadline. Brock Nelson is back. They're a bit slow right now. They haven't played a home game yet. The arena's still being finished. They're going to have a bunch of home games at the end of the season. I think that momentum will take them all the way to the Cup final. I will take the Oilers over the Islanders.
Oilers over the Islanders. You're jumping ahead a bit because the next question was who's going to win it all. But it's fine. We'll adjust that for you. Garrett, what's your way too early Stanley Cup prediction?
All right, so for my Western Conference champion, I'm going to go with the Edmonton Oilers. I think it's pretty self-explanatory. They're playing great hockey right now. and McDavid and Draisaitl playing off of each other. They're the two most dynamic players in the league, and I think they'll come out of the West. And then going out east, I'm going to go with the Carolina Hurricanes this year. As Kelsey brought up Sebastian Aho earlier, they've been playing some great hockey as of late. They're currently second in the West behind Florida, but I believe that the Panthers are going to miss Joel Quenneville later in the year, especially come playoff time. That was a big blow for them. It was the right decision to be made by the NHL. I was glad that it happened, but I just feel for those guys in Florida because that's gonna have an effect on their season, no question about it.
Kelsey.
I honestly had a tough time with this question because it's so early on, but also there's so many teams that I feel like could really sneak out from under.
But you have to pick two.
I know I have to pick two. I really like the Colorado Avalanche. I think that they have definitely taken some really, really awesome playoff runs the past couple of years. You know, you have Cale Makar, who literally played in a game 24 hours after the NCAA championship and put up points. Great guy. Nathan McKinnon, all-star, awesome player. I think they're definitely going to make a run at it. And then I also really like Carolina Hurricanes. Like I said, Sebastian Aho, really, really great player. And they've also taken a crack at playoffs the past couple of years, and they're good playoff teams. They can play in those really tight, tight and, kind of aggressive moments, those one-on-one battles. They're winning those face-offs. They're winning those, and I see them going pretty far.
I'll say this one because no one else really brought it up. Tampa Bay. They haven't really taken any steps back.
Interesting.
Too much. But I'll go Lightning and I'm blanking on another team. I won't say it's going to be a repeat. I don't think the Montreal is going to make it back. And I'm trying to think, I'm blanking if Tampa Bay is in the East or the West. I think they're in the East. Correct me, they're in the East, right? Okay, before I said something stupid. So I'll go Tampa Bay, and I like the Avalanche. I think that this is the year, this could be the year that they finally break through. Maybe in the East instead of Tampa, Toronto as well. Austin Matthews is such a perennial powerhouse that, ESPN did such a great job doing an article on him that I read a couple weeks ago. And so I'll throw those three teams in the mix: Tampa, Toronto, and the Avalanche. I think they're good. Anyway, Austin kind of ruined this, so I'll come to you last on this question.
Yeah,
but
deservedly
Kelsey,
so.
who's going to be your Stanley Cup champion this year?
Carolina Hurricanes.
Carolina, and nothing else about it, or you pretty much gave it.
They deserve it. I feel like they deserve it. It could go either way for them if they're in the end little bracket, but I see them taking home a Stanley Cup.
Garrett?
I picked the Hurricanes as well, and here's why. Since the turn of the millennium, the Stanley Cup has not gone north of the border. Canadian teams just don't win the cup. You can't pick. I have Edmonton in the final, and I can't pick them just because I know it's not going to happen.
Okay, so sticking with the USA teams. Austin, I'll change it up for you. Since we already know you're a Stanley Cup champion, if you had to pick one other team that you didn't already mention, who would it be?
I think, honestly, the Tampa Bay Lightning, as much as I think everyone hates them for going over the tax or whatnot and kind of cheating their way to 2 straight, I think their team is still the same. John Cooper, Vasilevsky, and Kell. We'll get to more of them later, but I think that's another team to look out for if they beat the Islanders again the 3rd year in a row in the Eastern Conference Finals. I can't complain as a Rangers fan, but that's another team to look out for. In the West, I'll throw out another team. It would be, I'm going to say the St. Louis Blues. They have a lot of that team that's still from the 2019 team that went to win the Cup. They're a feisty team. They get the job done at times. That experience matters. And if the Blues, we haven't talked about the Central too much, I think there's a team you could look out for.
No one's running on the Minnesota Wild. All right. Guys, stick around. We'll be right back because coming up after the break, Logan Toon joins us for a spotlight segment on the IU club hockey team. Then we play a game of Stanley Cup pretenders or contenders. Stick around. We'll be right back. Welcome back. Now to give some insight on the IU club hockey team is our own Logan Toon. Logan, the puck's yours.
Thanks, Evan. The Indiana Hoosiers club hockey team has had a very up and down year, with an overall record of 5 wins, 5 losses, and 0 ties, and a TSCHL record of 3 wins, 3 losses, and 0 ties. The Hoosiers have picked up solid wins against Bradley, Ohio, Denver, and Louisville. They swept the Louisville Cardinals in back-to-back wins, an impressive outing considering the Cardinals had an 8-4-1 record coming into it. The first game ended in a tight 3-2 overtime win with a goal by shootout specialist Jack Knoll. The second game finished in another tight and high-scoring affair with a score of 6-5. The win was led by an impressive hat trick by star freshman Tommy McDonald. The Hoosiers' upcoming schedule includes 14 games against 7 different teams. They will be looking to continue their momentum throughout these next 2 weeks. They will heavily rely on stud goalkeeper Sammy Billis, who has been Mr. Reliable recently with 30 saves on 32 shots in their last game. Over the course of the season, Billis has made 71 saves with a save percentage of 93%. This is a very impressive mark for the Indiana goalkeeper. With the star power Indiana possesses, a promising finish to the season doesn't sound too far off. Back to you, Evan.
Thanks, Logan. It's time for a new game on the toss-up. Stanley Cup contenders or pretenders. I got a list of about 7 or so teams coming up, and I'm going to ask you guys, are they contenders or are they pretenders? Let's start. First one, Tampa Bay Lightning. Garrett, you're on the clock.
Tampa Bay, they've won the past 2 Stanley Cups, so I've got to put them in the contender category. As we mentioned earlier, they haven't been playing up to the Lightning standard at the beginning of the season, but we've still got a long way to go, and I think they're going to make a playoff run, potentially seeing them in the conference final again, and who knows, maybe even the Cup final.
Austin?
Absolutely contender. I mentioned is as long as Vasilevsky's between the pipes and Steven Stamkos is playing absolutely fantastic hockey, even with Kucherov out, John Cooper knows how to get those boys ready. They are 100% contenders.
Last but not least.
It's unanimous.
Unanimous.
I mean, you can't argue it. They have had 2 outstanding seasons, which I was happy for them because, you know, they've had a tight playoff run in previous years before they did win 2 Stanley Cups. And so, I mean, they did have only a little bit of time between seasons with COVID protocols and everything. So give them a couple weeks. They'll be back. They'll be cruising.
All right, that was more of a gimme. You know, when you're back-to-back to Stanley Cup champions, you know, it's obvious you're contenders. So had to give you guys a gimme to warm up. Here we go. Philadelphia Flyers. Kelsey.
I'm gonna call pretenders on that one.
Pretenders.
I don't know. They're just so. Like they kind of fall within the middle of the standings every year, I feel like. And even when they do make playoffs, they really don't go super far. Claude Giroux is a fantastic player, but he's really the only name that stands out to me when I watch them. And so I don't really see them going too far.
Pretenders.
I'm going to go pretender as well for Philadelphia. Them being in the Eastern Conference is going to make the road to the final a lot tougher, no question. They'd have to get past teams like Tampa Bay, Florida, Carolina. I just don't think they have the firepower for that, and they're also one of the older teams in the league with their leader, Claude Giroux, and I just don't think they're going to be able to withstand the wear and tear of a full season and then still have the energy left to make a deep run.
Is it going to be unanimous, Austin?
Unfortunately, yes. I know this team was the number 1 seed somehow because of round robin a few years ago and the COVID season that was cut short for 3 months, but this is 100% a pretender. The rest of the Metropolitans come up to them. Not enough young players to really boost up that team. Carter Hart was absolutely terrible last year. Martin Jones is the number 2. I don't know how there's the worst 1-2 combo in the NHL. Pretenders, the Met has caught up.
So, Garrett, I'll start the next one with you. The Washington Capitals, pretenders or contenders? Because we've seen both the last couple of years.
Yeah, anytime Washington's got number 8 on their roster, they've got a great shot to do something special, and Ovechkin has really put the team on his back early and gotten them a lot of goals. But I'm going to go contender with the Capitals. I think it's a playoff race where anything can happen, and they have playoff experience as a team. Kuznetsov has been on a lot of those cup runs as well. So I think Washington has a shot to win it this year.
Kelsey?
I'm going to take contenders too. I mean, Garrett's right. They have Ovechkin. He is a powerhouse. But they have TJ Oshie. They have Kuznetsov. They have a pretty deep-rooted team. And I think that they can compete. When they're ready to go, they can definitely compete.
Austin, is it going to be unanimous again?
I want to do it, but yeah, it's going to be unanimous. They are pretenders.
No.
Ovechkin's a beast, scores a power play. Their power play percentage always the top in the league. John Carlson's one of the best D-men in the league, and Braden Holtby's gone. They finally have Vanacek in net, so I think this team, once again, until they can't make the playoffs or prove to me otherwise, they are contenders for as long as Ovechkin's still playing on that team.
All right, here we go. Detroit Red Wings. Austin, pretenders or contenders?
Pretenders. There's just not enough.
Are we going to get controversy here?
Yeah,
we'll find out in a minute, but Austin, finish.
I think there's just enough. There's a lot of young players that are very promising. I think they just need more experience. Dylan Larkin's finally being surrounded. Tyler Bertuzzi's had a great start to the season, but they're in a tough division, I think. And they need more years, but I think they have a bright future, moving in the right direction, but no way this team is a contender.
Kelsey, because of that reaction, I'm going to come to you, and I'm going to let Garrett tie-break it if you say contenders.
I'm going to say contenders. I think they've had a couple great drafts. I mean, you're right. They do have a lot of young players, but good thing it's an 82-game season. I mean, that's a long time, and we've only just started, and they do have a pretty decent record so far. So I think Dylan Larkin, if he can step up, if he can be a real leader, you got Fabry, you've got a ton of other guys that can play the puck really well, and I think that we can definitely see them go pretty far.
All right, panel tie-break, Garrett, no pressure.
I'm going to go contender for the Detroit Red Wings.
Hey!
They have been playing great hockey early in the season. They had a rough one last year, but towards the end, they started to play really well and get the chemistry that you need. Steve Yzerman, they brought him in for the rebuild. He's done a great job. He built the juggernaut that they have in Tampa Bay, and now he came back home to Detroit, and he's doing the same thing there. Lucas Raymond has played incredible this year. I went to a game a couple weeks back when they were playing in Chicago, and he ended up scoring a hat trick against the Hawks. So just seeing the way that they played as a team was really impressive. I know last year they were just dumping the puck into the zone and chasing it, but this year they're passing all the way up the ice and trying to find open lanes. It's really been impressive to watch, and I like Alek Nedeljkovic in net. He's been playing really well for them, and I think they've got a shot to make a playoff run.
All right, Garrett, I'll stay with you on this one. The Nashville Predators, contenders or pretenders?
Nashville's been a team these past few years that's been in the middle of the pack. They've made the playoffs, made some noise even.
Stanley Cup run a couple years ago.
Made it to the Stanley Cup final, but I'm just not convinced that they have what it takes. Yossi's getting up there in age. Yusei Saros has been playing great for them in goal, though, so if you have a good goaltender, you always have a shot. But I just don't think Nashville has what it takes to compete with some of the juggernauts.
Kelsey, shaking your head a little.
Pretender. I'm going to go pretender too. I mean, since their Stanley Cup final run, since they lost Mike Fisher, they lost Craig Smith, Pekka Rinne retired, they just really haven't been where they were. They were a really competitive team leading up to their Stanley Cup final run, and they kind of just fell off the map. If they aren't making playoffs, they're really only winning one series and dropping off the map. So I wouldn't take it.
And no PK Subban anymore. Austin.
Yeah, this team, the roster has what it takes to be a contender. I'm not going to deny that. The last couple seasons, I think Nashville's been one of the most disappointing teams the last few years. Ever since that Stanley Cup run, they really brought the city of Nashville to a real sports city. Them and the Titans as well, of course. Ruling Tennessee, just too many old players. Johansson, Yossi, you guys mentioned it. UC Soros has been a beast in that, but Flip Forsberg, I think there's just too many veterans on this team, not enough youth in this system. The roster can be contenders, and they won a round last year, but major disappointments the last few years. I don't see that changing. Unfortunately, I'm going to say they are pretenders.
I'll go back to you, Austin. Anaheim Ducks.
Pretenders.
I know Kelsey is very scared of their logo.
I knew you were going to say
the
that.
Anaheim Ducks.
Pretenders, another team that I think just needs more experience. Troy Terry has been on a tear so far. He's got over double-digit goals. Ryan Getzlaf broke the all-time Ducks record in points, and John Gibson can still do it in net. Once again, another team, a lot of young players need more years in the system. And yes, they're in the Pacific. One team I think is going to surprise us out of that division. I don't think it's going to be the Anaheim Ducks. Pretenders for now.
Any little clues on who you think that team's going to be that's going to surprise?
Oh, too much yet. I kind of want to lean to the Vancouver Canucks. I know that's probably an uncommon pick, but I think with that roster that they have, they got to figure out contracts and stuff. That power play is unbelievable. Bo Horvat's an absolute beast. JT Miller of the ex-Rangers doing it for them, and they can score goals. And sure, they might have Braden Holtby, but we're not going to talk about that. But I think the Canucks could be that fourth team.
Garrett, the Ducks.
I'm going to go pretender for the Mighty Ducks of Anaheim as well. I think they've put together some quality wins this year already, beating some good competition, but I just don't think they have what it takes, and they're not on a, if we were to do a tier ranking of NHL teams, I'd probably put them borderline tier 2, but mid tier 3, so I just don't think they have what it takes to make a cup run.
Kelsey?
Honestly, I'm a little stuck in the middle. I like the looks of Trevor Zegras. I like the looks of Terry. I think that they're building some really good quality hockey, but I'm not really convinced either. I mean, I wouldn't be totally surprised if they made playoffs, but I don't think that they would really go very far.
So that wasn't a.
That was like,
so that's like
I can give you like a pre-contenders.
Is that a first?
that could be a first. I mean, this game is a first, so anything really is a first.
Pre-contenders?
So pre-contenders, like a year or two away, yeah, you'd say.
Maybe, or they turn it around really fast. You never know. Hockey's an unpredictable sport.
Well, last team, I'll say, they're going to be the Colorado Avalanche. First of all, because we've all already mentioned them, is anyone going to say that they're pretenders? Because we all know that they're very well contenders.
I'm not.
No.
I think they're overrated.
You think they're overrated?
Wow.
But are they still contenders?
Of course they are. Nathan McKinnon's on that team. Sure, they lost Grubauer in the draft, but it's still Cale Makar. They got Landeskog. They have a very top-heavy team, which kind of worries me. They kind of get another year of experience. I just don't think they'll get the job done for some odd reason. Colorado, I don't know how they choke things so much out there, but they should be better. I don't think they're going to make it to the Cup final, but yes, of course they're contenders.
And what about haven't mentioned them yet. Arizona Coyotes. I know they've kind of they've been somewhere around there the last few years, right? Garrett, you're shaking your head.
Yeah, Arizona. They're the only team in the league with a worse record than the Blackhawks. So no, I don't think the Coyotes. This is definitely a rebuilding year for them, and they're starting to lose the city of Arizona. I know they have a dispute. They're trying to get a new rink there, I think, and things aren't going as planned. So I don't know. They might be on the move. We'll have to see.
Contenders
to move cities, I think that's the
contenders. Any final thoughts, Kelsey?
They might be going north. I don't know.
I
wouldn't be surprised.
Where would you think they'd go and rebrand?
I don't know.
What city would you play? Let's play hypothetical right now.
I'd love to see them. I think we were talking about this the other night. I would love to see them in Canada around like the Mississauga area.
Or they could stick them in Quebec and bring back the Nordiques, a team that relocated to Colorado and became the Avalanche. I think that's a very real possibility. It's definitely a hockey market, and Canada really, in my opinion, doesn't have enough teams compared to how many are in the States. So I think that's a possibility.
Austin, where would you want to see them move and rebrand?
I think if you think about cities in the U.S. that kind of deserve a sports team, I think maybe Portland is another one that could be an option. There have kind of been rumors there, but get them out of Arizona. It's hot out there all the time. I don't know why they have a hockey team there. That might be why they're so bad. But anywhere, I want to see a new city get a chance at a hockey team.
Here's mine that I'll briefly throw out there. New Orleans. You have the Saints, you have the Pelicans, so they have the facilities to do it. I wouldn't say that I know enough about the city to really say, oh, it'll work. But I feel like New Orleans as a team, they already have two powerhouse, power force sports in that city. So why not add another one?
Yeah, the only thing that worries me with that is, excuse me, the Winnipeg Jets relocated to Atlanta in the early 2000s. It became the Thrashers, and that was a train wreck. It lasted less than 10 years, and then they ended up just becoming the Jets again. So I don't know. It'll be interesting because you got to really find out if people down there love hockey, and I guess there's only one way to is put a team there and see what happens.
And only time will tell. Austin, Garrett, Kelsey, thank you for joining the show, and that's going to do it for the show this week. Be sure to continue the discussion and follow us on Instagram at IUSTV Sports and on Twitter at IUSTV Sports. We're always looking for ways to improve the show, so feel free to give any suggestions and ask any questions you might have via social media. With that, there's one thing left to do, so toss it up, find out if we'll catch it, and we'll see you next week.